another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Got another good show lined up for you this week. I know you'll think so after viewing it. James Vandenberg, the former Hawkeye quarterback, going to join us as usual. Then we'll follow that up with a twofer. Separate segments with our guys from 24/7 Sports or CBS Sports, the Hawkeye Insiders, David Eickholt, and then Sean Bock. Going to be talking some Hawkeye recruiting today as well. Got to let you know it's a bye week, so they got to sit on this loss for a week, unfortunately. So Hawks lose to Purdue, and we'll get into that in the show. I don't want to belabor that point anymore. But as you see, my friends Craig and Stacy joining me from fightwithflash.org or Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook. Craig, Stacy, you look great as always. Thanks for joining us. Now, on the website today, DaveO'HaraSports.com, be sure to swing over there and watch that after the show. Craig, you're going to tell us in detail, and Stacy, about your trip to Colorado, but also you've got the lottery for the special edition Fight with Flash Bourbon that we've talked about for the past couple of weeks. So, Craig, tell the viewers right now, a little teaser, how do they get involved with that lottery?
Yes, if anybody out there wants to be involved in the online lottery, what they need to do is they need to request a friendship with me, Craig Schroeder, on Facebook. Once we do, then I'm able to go to the Angel Share Facebook group because it's a private group. I'm able to then invite you, and you'll get a notification, an invite from me to join the group. You have to answer 3 questions, and then after that, I would vouch for each person individually, and then you'd be accepted in. The event is going to be October 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And once you're a member of that group, you're going to be able to participate and join in and donate for tickets and have a chance to win up to 40 some different types of bottles of bourbon.
Fantastic. So again, that's CraigSchroeder, Craig Schroeder via Facebook, and he'll get you right into that lottery. Craig, Stacy, thanks so much. We're also going to, on a serious note, talk about Dick Vitale. He was diagnosed yesterday with another bout with cancer, this time with lymphoma, but you both know what a fighter he is, and he said he's still going to continue to broadcast and treat this. So are we surprised by that positive?
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
A negative to a positive. So go Dickie V. We're going to get this. So let's go over to the website after the show. Go to DaveO'HaraSports.com, and you can hear Craig and Stacy and I talk more about everything we just discussed and more. So back with more, and James Vandenberg, the former Hawkeye quarterback, in just a few moments. And as you can see on the screen, I've located my buddy James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, part of the RBC Wealth Management Group, quarterinvestmentgroup.com. James, heavy sigh here, 24/7 Hawkeye loss. Our streak, importantly for the viewers,
It's over.
importantly for Hawkeye fans, the 12-game winning streak is over. But yes, for you and me, together on this show, 12 weeks in a row, we had the Hawks clipping along, and lo and behold, up jumped the devil. Hawks lose 24/7 homecoming. You and I were talking off the air a little bit about social media and fan reaction, not just on social media, but anywhere you go in town, to the bank, to the store. Everybody's in the woe is me. Although we record this on Tuesday afternoon, James, we're only 3 full days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, removed from the loss yet. But take us through. We've seen all the comments and read all the comments, heard all the rhetoric of, how the sky has fallen and the Hawks have an extra week to ruminate on this loss. Would it be better to play right away? They have a bye this week and they don't play until next Saturday, the 30th, at Wisconsin and Madison, even though they're 3-3. You and I both know that's a tough place to play. But take us through that quarterback room and the meeting rooms and the team, not just on the offensive side of the football or the quarterback room with Ken O'Keefe, Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz, Spencer Petras. How are the leaders of the team, the players, but also the leaders, the coaches, how are they handling it this week?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, on the social media thing, I'm not the greatest probably commentator on it because I think it was so instilled in my head to live in a bunker, basically, so to speak, that even post football, it's like I do not pay attention outside of talking to a handful of friends. But I can assume what's being said out there, and I assume it's, the world is ending, and the offense is the worst thing in the world, and we're going to end up 6-6 and fire and bench and blah, blah, blah. But
you're presuming correctly, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably the general theme, just with some other expletives added in there. When you think about, just the team in general, even your comment on should they play next week or have an extra week? It's like, I don't know what coach said this, but whoever's pondering that's too bored. I don't know what would be better. Having an extra week is not a positive or a negative. I would probably see it as more of a positive, quite frankly. It's good to let it soak in. I think everybody felt we were going 6-0, or we were 6-0, and all of a sudden you thought we were a foregone conclusion to play Alabama in the final.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we weren't, but it sure seemed like it was just a shoo-in. Like, here we go, we're going to the CFP. I know that wasn't going through the coach's mind, but in general, that was everybody was hearing and feeling that. So players were hearing and feeling that. And it's okay to sometimes get knocked down a level. Actually, a lot of times that's a good thing. I don't know if this will be a good thing or not. I'd rather be undefeated, but ultimately these can serve as good, building blocks moving forward. Adversity is a good thing. So I don't know what the coaches are saying. I'm assuming, the little I watched the game, we could probably just wipe the slate clean on all three phases of the game. I think we could have done better. Almost everybody, every coach, every player would probably agree to that. And ultimately, like you said, we got 10 days to now prep for Wisconsin. I don't care what their record is. Like, they play our style football. It will be physical. There will be good defense. It will not be an easy place to just go in and win.
Yeah. And to your point about whether it was a day off or not, it was more, I was posing you the question because the talking heads like you, former players on ESPN, were, is it better to have a bye week? Is it better to get right back to it? And like you said, too, you sound like my dad used to always say, too, those guys got way too much free time on their hands. Let's just get to business. But I will say this to you, and you mentioned this off the air, and I got to get to this. Spencer Petras, yes, he had 4 interceptions. The Hawks had no interceptions on defense, only 1 fumble recovery, highly unusual for this opportunistic defense. But to your point and my point off the air, and I'll bring this on the air, Spencer, yes, he had 4 interceptions. I'm not excusing away what he did. He even said he has to get better. But we both know a couple of those interceptions were at the end of the game when you're chucking the ball all over the yard, trying to, in desperation, it's like a Hail Mary at the end of the half. And yes, if it gets picked off, that counts as an interception. And I loved your reaction as a former quarterback. Give it to me again. What'd you say when I said that counts as an interception?
Oh, yeah, you made a comment about Hail Marys, and it's like, I wish those didn't count because they forced me to throw them.
That's right.
Interceptions is just one little stat line. Ultimately, I think Spencer, the offense, the team in general, is judging themselves off of points because that's all that really matters. I don't care if we run it 100 times and score 50 points, or we throw it 100 times, including 10 interceptions and score 50 points. We just want to score points. And ultimately, we didn't do that Saturday. And you can blame it on a myriad of things, but ultimately, they did a better job than us. Speaking to the defense, let's give some credit to that quarterback and that offense because they were about as sharp as I've seen them come into Kinnick Stadium in a while. They had a good game plan, and that guy played well. Every time we blitzed, he found the open guy. It was David Bell a lot. It's easy to say, it's just one guy, but that's one pretty talented guy. So everything's more complicated than people want to break it down to. Ultimately, we got beat in all 3 phases, and ultimately everybody's going to have accepted that it's Tuesday. They're going to have accepted that by now, and we're going to start turning the page to Wisconsin. So that's the mindset, I'm sure.
Well stated, but we all know Jeff Brom had a good track record against the Hawks, 3-4 coming in again. His last 3 out of 4 games against the Hawks, he's won. David Bell 3 years in a row now, like you said. I think Ed Podolak said during the broadcast, I had my headphones on during the game, and Ed Podolak, legendary Hawkeye and still color commentator with Gary Dolphin in the Hawkeye radio broadcast, and he said, it's not fair. David Bell should be playing on Sundays in the NFL, not on Saturdays in college football. And it's not to excuse away the Hawkeye defense, but as you mentioned, there's myriad of issues when you don't get a pass rush on defense, when then the linebackers are stressed. That also puts the D-backs in stress. You try to go man-to-man against David Bell. Trouble all the way around. I do want to end this segment with you by asking you directly or commenting and getting your thoughts on this. And, of course, we always I've been hearing for all year, but especially after this week with the loss, okay, you got to play Alex Padilla, you got to play Deuce Hogan, the backup quarterbacks. And you and I both know after a loss, the most popular guy in town is always the backup quarterback. So, James, clarify this for me. If Alex Padilla or Deuce Hogan were playing better than Spencer Petras, you said this earlier in the year, there are coaches there that would see that and they'd be playing. So, obviously, Spencer is the number 1 option still, but I know it's trite and I know it's being repetitive, but say that for us again, please.
Yeah, nothing's changed there. And I don't even think it's probably close. And I'm not saying that as any disrespect to anybody, but I think Petras is the best guy for us by a long shot. I believe the coaches think that too. They know better than any of us. And ultimately, if you would have, let's just go back to before we even played a game this year. If I said, hey, Dave, we're going to be 6-1, having whooped up on Indiana, Iowa State, Penn State, we're going to drop one to Purdue to a really hot quarterback. We're 6-1, though. We control basically our destiny. We're still in the playoff talk, technically. Would that be good or bad? I mean, one game doesn't change anything. We've got a talented football team. We got a great coaching staff. We got a good young quarterback that's, growing every week still. So, no, I think he's the best option. I don't think it's even close. And the coaches, Coach Ferentz, they've done this a long time. They know. They watch every single rep. We get to watch 50, 40, 60 snaps, whatever, every Saturday. We don't get to see every rep. And there is a difference. We get to see who studies in the classroom. We get to see who leads in the locker room, or they get to see all that. We don't get to see any of that. We get to see 60 snaps where we can't hear anything and we're spilling beer on each other. It's not the greatest way to assess somebody. They've got a lot better look, and I think we should all trust them.
I greatly appreciate you revisiting that with us. It bears repeating. So, James, Hawks do fall from number 2 in the country down to number 11. And as you said, they can work their way back up. Off the air and on my radio shows and podcasts, I did call this before the season even kicked. I know you and I were talking off the air. I had this Purdue game circled as one of the Hawks lost this year. I had them going 9-3 or 8-4. So you're exactly right. Yes, would I have loved them to still be undefeated, as you mentioned? And you and I keep the streak of the Hawkeye TV show going at 12-0, but now it's broken. So all the pressure's off now, James. We can relax. But hey, again, thank you so much for restating that and putting some perspective and context with this. Because as you mentioned, when guys are in the crowd, whether they're spilling beer on each other or high-five and they're pointing fingers, accusing fingers, take it easy. 6-1, got a bye week, got the big Wisconsin game upcoming. So, James, as always, thank you so very much. He is James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, part of RBC Wealth Management in Cedar Rapids, CorridorInvestmentGroup.com. James, my friend, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
My pleasure as always. You're welcome, and thank you. For James Vandenberg, I'm Dave O'Hara. Back with more to close out the show with Hawkeyed with David Eickholt, Hawkeye Insider, and then Sean Bock, Hawkeye Insider as well. Going to talk some Hawkeye recruiting, football and basketball with Sean, and game analysis with David Eickholt. So back with more Hawkeyed in just a few moments.
In farming, everybody knows relationships drive the industry. And with Merschman Seeds, you've got a friend in the field. Hi, this is Joe Merschman. We're the friend that delivers with extraordinary speed. We're the friend that shares knowledge and innovation. We're the friend that cares about your yields and profits. And we just happen to have the most advanced seed technology in the industry. When you choose the best seed, you also get the best people. Merschman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you see on the screen, my buddy David Eickholt, part of that fantastic 24/7 sports group, CBS Sports, HawkeyeInsider.com. Exhale here, David. 24/7 Hawkeye loss at home coming to Purdue. We both kind of chuckled. It's a bye week. You and I actually off the air talked about this, and I mentioned this to James Vandenberg. This was one of the games you and I circled preseason. We both had the Hawks going 8-4, 9-3. We said, look out for Purdue. Jeff Brom went in 3 out of his last 4 against the Hawks. David Bell, I don't mean to curse at you, Hawkeye fans, but David Bell now 3 years in a row. I think Ed Podolak had the best line, though, when he said, it's not fair. David Bell should be playing on Sundays in the NFL and not in college football, but just use the Hawks. But I'm going to let you decide. Well, first of all, thanks for joining us as always, and true stand-up guy showing up this week. But I don't know if you want to start offense, defense. I talked to James Vandenberg about the offense. Why don't you and I start defense? When you don't have a pass rush, it makes life tough for the linebackers. It makes life even tougher for the defensive backs. And I'm not picking on the line specifically. Obviously, a great scheme from Purdue. I'm going to get out of the way and let you talk a little defense or lack thereof.
You know, here's the thing. Even Superman has his kryptonite, and I think without a doubt, Phil Parker's kryptonite is Purdue's offense. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Jeff Brom and them. I mean, Aiden O'Connell is absolutely dynamite. Probably one of the more impressive quarterback performances I've seen in Kinnick Stadium. And look, David Bell, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver I've ever seen.
When healthy, you're right. Yeah, when healthy.
He's absolutely tremendous, not just against Iowa. You go back across the tape of the season, even back in his high school career, his teammates with Justin Britt. I mean, he's just a high caliber guy, future first round guy, and 240 yards, Dave. I mean, when you're going up against Matt Hankins, who is a mid-season first team All-American, and doing what he did against Matt Hankins, it truly just was impressive. But like you said, no pass rush, really not sending many blitzes because they were trying to put 2 or 3 guys on David Bell. But he just found a way to navigate through the system. And again, a lot of creativity from Jeff Brom and Aiden O'Connell and company.
Yeah, and again, we talked about the success Brom has had, and his brother was a former very good college quarterback and now the OC, and they had a game plan and they knew what they were doing. But I will also say this to you, David. When you take a look at, and I don't, walking into Kinnick Stadium, I don't want to say the Hawks came off flat, but I really thought when they had an opportunity, when Purdue fumbled the ball into the end zone or off the pylon, Hawks got the ball. At the time, I think they were down either 17-7 or 14-7. I thought, okay, here's your chance. Let's get back in this game, get yourself back in it. And David, it just fell flat. Petrus got sacked back-to-back times after that and just went asunder.
You know, here's the thing too, Dave, and I've really started to realize this is a disturbing trend for the Iowa offense. And I do think the offense is more glaring of an issue because special teams wasn't up to par.
Yes.
Because the defense wasn't its usual self. So now there's more issues on the offense. But the game started out with a 38-yard completion to Keegan Johnson.
Yep.
What happened the next 2 plays? A failed jet sweep that went for a yard, an outside zone read, and then a short pass that was tipped and intercepted. Iowa this season, I think one of their biggest problems, and I think the O-line's a big deal. I do think there's issues. When Tyler Linderbaum's the only one holding his block play after play, it's a big deal. But Iowa just refuses to keep attacking the weak points of defenses and staying aggressive. And I think when you look at the Maryland game, when you look at a couple other games this year, that's when they really, really have shined. And again, Keegan Johnson, 38-yard completion, Dave. He only saw 15 more snaps after that, and he's Iowa's second leading receiver yardage-wise. And oh, by the way, he only has 6 catches.
Well, and I saw you post that on social media, and that was alarming to me. I had not realized only 16 total snaps, 15 after that opening catch. Again, as you see throughout the segment, at the beginning of the segment, end of the segment, for sure, all of David's contact information. Do follow him on social, or again, HawkeyeInsider.com, because that was an interesting tidbit a lot of people didn't realize. Yeah, how you start that strong and then just winnow away the snaps from Keegan. But let's take a look at some other things. As you mentioned with the defense, you had guys that were either getting acclaim as national players of the defensive players of the week or Big Ten players of the week. You become very human, again, as we mentioned, with no pass rush. So I would say both lines got my attention, offense and defense. Let's get to that offensive line discussion a little bit, because obviously James Vandenberg and I talked about the topic du jour, of course, of why isn't Padilla playing? Why isn't Hogan playing? Can you believe that? And I said to James, and I said that to James Vandenberg, of course, of all people who know better than James, and he said the same thing. I said, well, James, you know the backup quarterback's always the most popular guy in town after a loss. But David, obviously, as James said, Deuce Hogan and Alex Padilla are not getting it done in practice. And so Spencer Petrus is the guy. Let's put that to rest. So David, you and I talked earlier in this segment about the defensive line, or lack thereof. So let's get to the offensive line. James Vandenberg and I didn't get that deep into the conversation about the offense. Talk about the offensive line and the issues that are happening.
I mean, Dave, when you're seeing play after play where Tyler Linderbaum is the only one maintaining his blocks, I mean, you're really not going to be able to get many things going. I mean, Tyler Goodson only had 12 carries, and that's not a winning formula when he's probably the best playmaker in open space. I mean, maybe alongside Keegan Johnson at this point. But I do like Mason Richmond, an offensive tackle. I do think he's going to be a very, very good prospect and good player down the line. Connor Colby at guard, I think, is going to be probably an all-conference caliber guy. But Nick DeYoung, with all due respect to him, scholarship guy, he was former walk-on. I think he's a high floor, low ceiling caliber guy. And I do think that this bye week, they are going to really need to have a deep introspection and maybe shuffle some things around, because without running game and Petrus being clean in the pocket, this offense really, it's going to struggle.
Yeah, and that's running game you mentioned, passing game, protection, runs the whole gamut. So David, great stuff as always. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it, Dave. For
David Eickholt, I'm Dave O'Hara. Hawkeyed with me. We'll be back to close out the show with David's cohort, Sean Bock, talking some recruiting with HawkeyeInsider.com. You see all of David's information on the bottom of the screen along with mine. Back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through. And the same holds true here. From our fair, upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing the book on it? Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds has been treating soybeans for decades, long before it was commonplace. We're the leader in technology, introducing Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, with an added fungicide to help produce a faster, more even emergence every single time. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen, I've located my buddy Sean Bock. Sean with HawkeyeInsider.com, 24/7 Sports, part of that fantastic CBS Sports Network. As always, Sean, thanks for joining us. How's everything going with you?
It's going good, Dave. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure as always. Again, you see all of Sean's information on the bottom of the screen along with mine. Sean, got to get right to it. We got recruiting to talk about, and we promoted at the beginning of the show. I teased it and said Sean's our recruiting guy. David Eickholt had a little more game analysis with us, but tough loss for the Hawks last week, 24/7 bye week. So what else should we do? Let's talk recruiting. So let's get to football first. Let's talk about the guys from Iowa initially, and then you got two guys that flipped from other programs. So let's talk football, and then we're going to talk basketball recruiting as well. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, so Xavier Nwankpa, the five-star safety out of Southeast Polk, obviously been a top target for Iowa for quite some time now, and things seem to be really trending in favor of Iowa, obviously with the success that they had this year in the defensive backs, and Phil Parker kind of speaks for itself, and when you have all those things going for you, that makes a lot of sense, makes it all add up. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. He's announcing his decision on December 8th. Notre Dame and Ohio State are also involved. He's taking both official visits there. He's going to take unofficial visits to both schools to close out his recruitment, and then he's going to make his decision on his birthday. So my take on it's going to come down to Iowa and Notre Dame, but I think the Hawkeyes have a bit of an edge right now.
So December 8th is when we're going to get that. And then, of course, you mentioned his teammate is a 2023 down the road, but Caden Proctor has more than a handful of choices, but Iowa being one of those choices. So Caden Proctor. But let's talk about a couple of out-of-state guys who flipped from their programs and commitments. A kid from Illinois who is now in Connecticut, but decommitted from Illinois, University of Illinois, and then a kid from Ohio who decommitted from Cal Berkeley to come to Iowa. So let's talk about those guys, please.
Yeah, we'll start with Brian Allen, the three-star defensive end from Illinois, who now attends school in Connecticut. He actually decommitted from Illinois last week. Hasn't committed to Iowa yet, but Iowa is really trending there. Oregon was a new offer. Really good relationship with the staff. There were a couple things that need to be worked out behind the scenes with waivers and some of the hiring that Iowa did, but that all seems to be cleared up. So Iowa's looking good in that recruitment, and we'll see what other schools hop in, but I think Iowa's got a pretty good hold there. And then with Caleb Johnson, who actually did flip, that was kind of a surprise official visit. He's been locked into Cal since June, and Iowa State was another big contender. Was supposed to take an official visit to Iowa in June, but committed to Cal earlier than expected. He took an official visit for the Penn State weekend, was blown away, and ended up flipping to Iowa. That's a really good pickup because Caleb's a very compact back, pretty all-around guy, can run through guys, can also outrun guys. He's kind of the full package, and it's a really good addition.
Fantastic. And I get excited about defensive ends because Iowa's become, besides tight end U, they're defensive end U. So that's why I got a little presumptive on the transfer for Allen, but could be happening here. Let's get to basketball, about 30 seconds each on Owen Freeman, and then Peyton Sanford's younger brother got an offer. So let's talk about those two guys, please, for basketball.
Yeah. Price Sanford, let's start with him. Really good player out of Waukee Northwest, their first year as a new school. Obviously the younger brother of Iowa wing, Peyton Sanford, true freshman, who looks to be getting some minutes this year potentially. Price got the offer this weekend. It was a long time coming. And Iowa will be a big contender there as well. I know Drake is offered as well. Iowa State's going to be involved. Clemson, Wake Forest have all shown interest. So there's going to be a fair share. And then Owen Freeman, a 2023 big man from Bradley Bourbonnais out there in Illinois, had offers from Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, most of the Big Ten. Iowa was able to get him on campus and got a surprise commitment from him. He's a very, very good big man, very high upside, very long, athletic kid, and he's a pretty good get this early in the process for sure.
Wonderful stuff. And of course, we start with the in-state kid, Sanford from Iowa, and then of course, Owen Freeman. So Sean, great stuff from you as always. Again, you see my information along the screen with Sean's, how to get in touch with Sean. He's part of that 24/7 Sports Network and CBS Sports Network. Hawkeye Insider works with David Eickholt. Again, Sean, thanks so much. Great seeing you again. Thanks for joining us with great insights.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for having me.
My pleasure as always. For Sean Bock and David Eickholt and James Vandenberg, Craig and Stacy Schroeder, and to you, the viewers, thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate you having us tuned in, as well as thanks to Rob and Abby with Homegrown Media for getting us on the air, and again to you, the viewers. So for the aforementioned guests, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you. Thanks again for staying tuned throughout the credits of this show. I want to thank our advertisers and sponsors and giving them the credit they so richly deserve. Without them, we don't have a show. So thanks again for staying tuned for that, and again for tuning in, and to our guests. So for Hawkeye, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.